The champagne flute trembled in Elise's manicured hand as I approached the microphone. Her eyes, once so calculating, now widened with the first flickers of terror. My brother Marcus, her new husband and my replacement as CEO, was still smiling, oblivious to the document being discreetly handed to him by my attorney. "To fresh starts and fearless futures," Elise had just toasted, her voice carrying across the vineyard our father had built. I took the microphone from its stand. "You stole a company," I said quietly, my voice amplified across the stunned silence of 200 wedding guests. "You married a fraud, and I just took it all back." The gasps that rippled through the crowd provided the perfect backdrop to Marcus's face as he scanned the legal judgment: immediate termination, asset freeze, and 48 hours to vacate all Weller corporate premises. In that moment, as Elise's picture-perfect smile disintegrated, I felt something I hadn't experienced in over a year: peace. My name is Daniel Weller, 42, firstborn son of Jonathan Weller and the former CEO of Weller & Company, the international consulting firm my father built from nothing. I was groomed from childhood to take the reins, and when Dad finally stepped down 10 years ago, I stepped up. The company thrived under my leadership, annual growth averaging 18%, client retention at an all-time high, and a corporate culture that made us a best place to work 5 years running. 7 years ago, I met Elise Carter at a charity gala. She was 29, ambitious, and breathtakingly beautiful, working as a marketing strategist for a mid-sized agency that handled some of our smaller campaigns. What started as professional admiration quickly became personal. Within a year, we were married. I thought I knew what love was. I believed in her completely. Elise moved seamlessly into my world, charming our clients, befriending our staff, and most importantly, winning over my father. No small feat for the notoriously critical Jonathan Weller. She even managed to build what seemed like a genuine friendship with my younger brother Marcus, who had always been the more creative but less disciplined of us. While I ran the company, Marcus headed our design division, talented but perpetually in my shadow. "You found the perfect partner, Danny," my father told me the Christmas before he died. "She reminds me of your mother, sharp as a tack and loyal to the bone." Loyal. The word makes me laugh now. For 5 years, Elise and I built what I believed was an unshakable marriage. We traveled the world, served on charity boards together, hosted dinner parties that became the talk of our social circle. She was my confidant, my partner, my best friend. When tough decisions needed to be made at work, Elise was often the first person I called. She knew everything about me, my insecurities, my dreams, my weaknesses. I would have trusted her with my life. And then, 13 months ago, my father died suddenly of a heart attack. The foundation of my world cracked, and through that crack, snakes slithered in. The first signs were so subtle that I dismissed them as grief's natural complications. Elise became distant, constantly checking her phone, laughing at messages I wasn't meant to see. When I asked, she'd say, "Just work stuff, nothing interesting." But her eyes would avoid mine. Marcus began stopping by the house more frequently, ostensibly to help with Dad's estate planning, always arriving just before I left for work or just after Elise had coincidentally texted to say she was heading home early. They'd always gotten along well, so I encouraged the connection, grateful that my wife and brother were supporting each other through our shared loss. 3 weeks after the funeral, Marcus approached me in my office with a document. "You're running yourself into the ground, Danny," he said, concern etched across his face. "You need time to grieve properly. This is just a temporary executive authority transfer. It gives me signing power for the next 3 months so you can take some time off. Standard procedure." I hesitated, but he pressed on. "Dad wouldn't want you working yourself to death. Sign it for him, if not for yourself." The invocation of our father's wishes was the push I needed. I signed without reading the fine print, a cardinal sin in our business, but this was my brother, my family. The same week, Elise left a folder of papers on the kitchen counter. Divorce papers. No warning, no conversation, just irreconcilable differences cited in cold legal language. "I've grown beyond this marriage," she said when confronted, her voice devoid of the warmth that had once drawn me to her. "We want different things now." I was devastated, but too proud to beg, too shocked to question, too consumed by grief over my father to fight properly for my marriage. I moved out of our home and into a downtown apartment, telling myself I needed space to process both losses. 2 weeks later, Marcus called an emergency board meeting. I arrived to find most seats already filled, faces I didn't recognize mixed with long-time board members who wouldn't meet my eyes. Due to Daniel's recent personal trauma and evident burnout, I'm invoking Section 5 of the Temporary Authority Transfer to assume full CEO responsibilities, effective immediately, Marcus announced. Our legal team has reviewed and approved this action. Before I could object, he added, and to strengthen our digital presence moving forward, I'm bringing on Elise Carter as our new strategic communications partner. The door opened, and Elise walked in wearing a dress I'd never seen, her hand resting possessively on my brother's arm. The betrayal was complete. My brother had stolen my company. My wife had left me for him, and I had signed away my power during the most vulnerable moment of my life. That night, their engagement announcement appeared on Elise's Instagram, accompanied by a caption that read, "From wife of a worker to CEO's queen. Sometimes the universe knows better than we do." Level up. New chapter. I was erased from my marriage, my company, and apparently, my own life story. For 3 months, I disappeared. Friends called, colleagues texted, industry peers reached out with concerned emails. I responded to none of them. The world thought I was broken, drinking myself into oblivion or perhaps contemplating worse. Marcus and Elise certainly believed it. She posted about leaving the past behind and cutting toxic energy. He gave interviews about bringing fresh vision to a stagnant leadership. They were rewriting history with me cast as the failure, the obstacle to progress. But I wasn't drinking. I wasn't wallowing. I was planning. My breaking point came on what would have been my father's 70th birthday. I visited his grave alone, placing his favorite scotch beside the headstone. As I stood there, my phone buzzed with a news alert. Weller and Company announces restructuring under new leadership. Family legacy enters modern era. The accompanying photo showed Marcus and Elise cutting a ribbon at the renamed headquarters, the Marcus Weller building. I felt something shift inside me, not anger, but clarity, cold, precise clarity. "They think they've won, Dad," I whispered to the granite marker. "But they forgot something important. I'm your son too, and you taught me to always read the fine print." I walked away from that cemetery a different man. The grieving husband and betrayed brother died that day. What emerged was something colder, more calculating, a man with nothing left to lose and everything to reclaim. My first move was to find the right allies. I contacted Judith Abernathy, our family's longtime attorney who had retired the year before my father died. She had drafted most of our founding documents, including the company bylaws that Marcus had so conveniently simplified during the transition. "Your father was a paranoid old fox," Judith told me over coffee in her home office, away from prying eyes. After that hostile takeover attempt in '98, he inserted what we called the Godfather Clause into the company charter. She explained that this hidden provision allowed for the reversal of any executive power transfer made under duress, especially within 30 days of a family death, provided the board had not unanimously approved it. The clause had never been triggered, until now. "Did Marcus know about this?" I asked. "Not likely. It was buried in the appendices of documents your father kept in his personal safe. Only 3 people knew about it. Your father, myself, and Gerald Hoffman." Gerald, our CFO emeritus, and my father's closest friend, a board member who had mysteriously retired shortly after Marcus took over. I spent weeks building my case meticulously. I hired private investigators to document the timeline of Marcus and Elise's relationship. They uncovered text messages dating back 8 months before my father's death, subtle at first, then increasingly explicit. Hotel receipts, secret email accounts. The affair had been ongoing long before Dad died. Through Gerald, I quietly connected with 2 other board members who had been sidelined by Marcus's new regime. They provided internal memos showing how Marcus had systematically dismantled my leadership team and replaced them with yes men. More importantly, they confirmed that the board vote for the permanent power transfer had not been unanimous. It had been rushed through with 3 abstentions. My financial team uncovered evidence of Marcus using company funds to finance lavish gifts for Elise even before our divorce was finalized, a conflict of interest and clear violation of company policy. They also found that Elise had accessed confidential client files using my credentials months before our separation, credentials I had never given her. I compiled everything, creating 2 distinct cases, one for the company's secret arbitration tribunal established by my father decades ago, and another dossier of personal and professional destruction that would never see a courtroom but would devastate them both if released publicly. The final piece came from an unexpected source. My father's former executive assistant, Linda, contacted me out of the blue. "Your father left something for you," she said, handing me a sealed envelope. "He made me promise to give it to you only if leadership of the company ever changed hands under suspicious circumstances." Inside was a letter and a small key to a safe deposit box. The letter was brief. "Danny, if you're reading this, someone has outplayed you. Remember, in chess, the king who appears to be in check may actually be setting a trap. The contents of this box are your queen." The safe deposit box contained a notarized document, a second will, more recent than the one executed after his death, with specific provisions about company succession. It explicitly stated that in the event of his death, control of Weller and Company could only transfer from me under specific conditions, including full board approval and a 6-month transition period. Neither condition had been met. Armed with this arsenal, I filed for secret arbitration under the Godfather Clause. For 2 months, proceedings happened behind closed doors while Marcus and Elise planned their wedding, blissfully unaware that their empire was crumbling beneath them. 1 week before their wedding, the arbitration panel delivered their verdict. Full control of Weller and Company was to be restored to me, effective immediately. Marcus was to be terminated for cause. All executive decisions made during his tenure would be subject to review. But I didn't execute the judgment immediately. I waited, letting them spend hundreds of thousands on their lavish vineyard wedding, the same vineyard where my father had taught us both to appreciate fine wine. I wanted their highest moment to become their lowest. I wanted witnesses. The wedding day arrived, sunny, perfect, and extravagant. I received my invitation as family, though I knew it was sent only for appearances. They probably expected me not to show, or perhaps to make a drunken scene they could later mock. Instead, I arrived sober, calm, and impeccably dressed, taking my assigned seat in the front row like the dutiful brother and ex-husband I was pretending to be. The ceremony was nauseating in its hypocrisy. Marcus vowed honesty and faithfulness to the woman he had helped steal from me. Elise promised loyalty and support, with the same lips that had whispered corporate secrets to him behind my back. They kissed to applause, never once making eye contact with me. During the reception, I watched them work the room, accepting congratulations and gifts from people who had once been my friends and colleagues. I sipped water while others drank champagne. I needed complete clarity for what came next. As the night progressed, the moment I had been waiting for arrived. Elise stood for the traditional bride's toast, champagne flute raised high. To fresh starts and fearless futures, she announced, her eyes sweeping triumphantly across the crowd. That was my cue. I nodded to my team strategically positioned around the room. My attorney, Gerald, the 2 loyal board members, and the private security detail I had hired for the occasion. I approached the microphone calmly, taking it as if this had been planned. The wedding planner moved to stop me, but my security detail intercepted her discreetly. "You stole a company," I said, my voice steady. "You married a fraud, and I just took it all back." My attorney approached Marcus, handing him the legal judgment as I continued speaking. "Effective immediately. Marcus Weller is terminated from Weller and Company for cause. All assets are frozen. You have 48 hours to vacate all corporate premises and return all company property." Elise's face drained of color. The champagne flute slipped from her fingers, shattering on the stone patio. "What is this bullshit?" Marcus sputtered, scanning the documents with growing horror. "It's called the Godfather Clause," I replied, loud enough for the nearest tables to hear. "Dad's final gift to me. You should have read the fine print before trying to steal what he built." Security personnel moved in, confiscating the company phones, tablets, and laptops Marcus and Elise had brazenly brought to their wedding. A second team was already changing locks at headquarters and securing servers. "You can't do this," Elise hissed, grabbing my arm. "We'll fight it." I leaned in close, speaking just for her ears. "Check your email, right now." She pulled out her personal phone, her fingers trembling as she opened her inbox. There she found an email I had timed for delivery at that exact moment, containing screenshots of her text messages with Marcus dating back months before our separation, records of her unauthorized access to client files, and evidence of her involvement in the forged documents used to accelerate my removal. "That's just a sample," I told her quietly. "There's enough there to end your career, possibly put you in prison for corporate espionage, and certainly destroy any reputation you have left. It goes to every major news outlet in an hour unless you both comply fully with all terms." I turned back to the stunned crowd, many of whom were recording the unfolding drama on their phones. "Please, enjoy the rest of the celebration," I announced with practiced grace. "The open bar will continue as planned, courtesy of the real CEO of Weller and Company." I walked out as whispers erupted behind me. Outside, my driver was waiting with the car door open. As I slid into the back seat, I heard Marcus shouting my name, but I didn't look back. There was nothing left to say. By midnight, the Weller wedding drama was trending. By morning, it was international news. The weeks that followed were a systematic dismantling of everything Marcus and Elise had built. Their downfall was as methodical as my planning had been. Within hours of the wedding, their access to all company systems was revoked. Elise's carefully curated social media empire imploded when I released evidence of her using company resources to artificially inflate her follower counts and engagement rates. Every NDA-protected influencer deal she had signed under her position as strategic partner was invalidated overnight. The whistleblower report I had prepared documenting her unauthorized use of my credentials went to the relevant regulatory bodies. One major client filed a $2.5 million lawsuit for breach of confidentiality when they discovered Elise had accessed and used their proprietary marketing strategy for another client. Screenshots of texts between Marcus and Elise mocking me, calling me a ghost in a suit and CEO of nothing, were anonymously leaked online. Their cruelty was exposed to the world, transforming public opinion from curiosity to outrage. Elise's carefully constructed online persona collapsed like a house of cards. Her followers turned on her viciously. Sponsors publicly severed ties, not wanting to be associated with such a toxic public figure. News outlets ran back-to-back stories about the corporate betrayal wedding. Her face went viral as a meme. The clawing climber who fell from grace. Marcus fared no better. The forensic audit I commissioned exposed his misuse of company funds. Over $1.2 million spent on secret trips, jewelry, and the down payment on a house he and Elise had purchased while still hiding their relationship. He was disqualified from serving on any executive board for 5 years. Former colleagues refused to associate with him. The press dubbed him the backstabbing brother, a nickname that followed him everywhere. Their marriage crumbled under the pressure. 3 months after the wedding, Elise filed for divorce, her second in less than 2 years. The irony was lost on no one. 6 months after the wedding fiasco, I delivered the final blow. A best-selling exposé titled The Godfather Clause, Blood, Betrayal, and the Fine Print That Brought Them Down. Published anonymously but clearly my work, it contained transcripts, receipts, board notes, and a detailed account of their rise and fall. The advance alone was 7 figures, all of which I donated to a foundation for corporate ethics in my father's name. Elise was eventually hired as a junior marketing consultant for a startup she had once publicly mocked, the only company willing to take a chance on her toxic brand. Her Instagram following dropped from millions to thousands, mostly people waiting for her next failure. She tried rebranding herself as a survivor of cancel culture, but no one was buying the victim narrative. Marcus moved abroad, attempting to reinvent himself under a slightly altered name. He approached several of our international competitors, but word had spread. No reputable firm would touch him. Last I heard, he was teaching basic design courses at a community college in a small Canadian town, his dreams of corporate glory permanently shattered. As for me, I never spoke their names again after the book was published. I returned to the corner office bearing my father's name, surrounded by people who had remained loyal. We restructured the company, focusing on the values my father had instilled: integrity, excellence, and genuine loyalty. On the anniversary of my father's death, I visited his grave again, this time bringing not just his favorite scotch, but 2 glasses. I poured for us both and raised my glass to his headstone. "The king wasn't in check after all, Dad," I said quietly, "and your queen played perfectly." I drank alone in the cemetery, feeling my father's approval in the autumn breeze. The company was secure, the betrayers were banished, and I had proven myself truly my father's son. Not just his heir, but his legacy incarnate. Some people said my revenge was too harsh, too complete. They didn't understand that this was never just about a company or a marriage. It was about honoring a sacred trust, about showing the world that the Weller name still stood for something. In the end, I didn't just take back what was stolen from me. I reclaimed something more valuable: my power. Not the power that comes from titles or wealth, but the kind that comes from knowing exactly who you are and what you're capable of when pushed too far. And that, as my father would say, is the only power worth having. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.